Hey, you are joining the Cover One Fantasy Show, and I am one of your three amigos, Greg Tompsett, along with my fellow amigos, Rich Haynes and Anthony Prohaska. Anthony, welcome back.
Very excited to be back. Had a hiatus, brief one last week. You guys held down the fort. I missed the unveiling of Rich's tree, so I was only able to watch through, live, but not in person technically. And it's nice to see it in all its luminescence and splendor. It's beautiful.
Glory.
It's glorious. I love it.
Rich, you're looking very festive. We got the hat on the trophy there. Everything's ready. How's it going?
It's going good. I got, getting some Christmas shopping done. I have a lot of vacation coming up here this month, which is nice. I'm not really going anywhere, but, just not having to work will be
staycation.
Will be cool. Yeah, a little staycation will be cool. Yeah, I don't know. Just enjoying last week. Got back on track from a bet perspective. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit. So I was pumped about that. And, not football related, but I'm into the Cavs. So Cavs are doing well right now. So
yeah, both of us went to the game on Sundays. That game in particular wasn't fun. It was really close. I had a video going, took my daughter to her first game, and I really thought she was going to watch a game-winning buzzer beater in her first game in person ever. Yeah. And it just rimmed out. And then even they had a putback attempt, and that one bounced out, and they lost by one. But then smoked the Bulls last night. It was good. So things are going well. We're now in the point where my daughter, who is 8, asks me every night, "Are the Cavs on tonight?" and watches the first half before she goes to bed. So we watch every single game. It's great.
And we want to talk about the Cavs for a minute because we're trying to get all the Buffalo people to like the Cavs so we can do a Cover One.
So we can pivot over and do Cover One Cavs
over the winter, on the side. But actually, my daughter's the same way. She's 4. So she doesn't really get it yet, but she loves Darius Garland because of the little hair poof he does.
Yeah.
So she wants to wear her hair like Darius Garland, and she runs around the house with the little rooster thing going on, and is really pumped about it. So
that's awesome. So for tonight, we are going to get into some fun things with our naughty and nice list of who we made nice calls on early in the season, or who we need to take some medicine on and maybe make some apologies. But first, we're going to start with, obviously tonight, the big question is Minnesota's backfield. Dalvin Cook, most people, myself included, were assuming he was going to be out. The man separated his shoulder a week and a half ago, 11 days ago. News breaks this morning that, hey, there's a possibility he might play. We're not really sure. As it goes on during the day, sounds more and more promising. Now, Adam Schefter has a tweet that he's playing in a harness. Hey, the last time he played in a harness was playoff game in 2019. Strapped it up, went for 31 touches for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I'll start with you, Rich. If, for leagues that you have him or leagues where you care about it, how are you handling Dalvin Cook versus Alexander Mattison?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of sad in the one league that I have Cook. It's a full dynasty. So for a while, I had Alexander Mattison as well, and I ended up kind of giving up the handcuff at one point. But, and tonight, that's not really going to matter because obviously you have to make the choice one way or the other. So, I'm making the choice to play Dalvin Cook as well. I just think it's too much of an upside. So in this particular league, it's 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, a flex. He's actually going to be my flex. Actually, I'm going to put him in the running back position just in case because I'm mixing as well. But on the bench this week, for me, if I had Keenan Allen healthy, I would probably not play him, but he's out with COVID most likely. Jerry Jeudy, Devonta Smith's on bye. I wouldn't play Devonta Smith over him anyways. I wouldn't play Jerry Jeudy over him. So, for me, I'm certainly going to play him. I have Mixon and Leonard Fournette also kind of on that squad. So, I'm okay at running back either way. But I think you have to play him. I mean, you have to play him. And Greg, we were talking about it pre-show. And, not only did you bring up a couple stats, but our friends over at Football Guys put a message out to folks as well. He's had this situation happen in the past, and they've given him plenty of carries. So, again, unless he gets hurt right away, he's going to get the ball. So I think you have to give it a shot.
So Anthony, how about you? And it could be specifically Dalvin, but then overall, how do you handle these situations later in the year? The NFL is an attrition league. As guys get more and more dinged up, how do you approach them, especially when it's high value, high draft, high auction dollar studs that were guys who carried you to this point? How do you approach those? So first start with Dalvin, and then overall, how do you touch on those?
With Dalvin, I think you guys are spot on, and what you just said now and what we talked about off air, in going with what Rich said, it depends on your roster construction. If you've got somebody on the bench that has a really good matchup or a good opportunity, and you're like, okay, you know what, I'm okay or comfortable with this, but if you have Dalvin Cook, most likely you got him high in the first round. He is a high value player for your team. Maybe you drafted fantastically and you got somebody else that you could flex in there, running back, receiver, tight end, like whatever. But I think for most people, he is your, not even a stud, he is your stud. You got to play your studs. And in that case, Greg, I love the research that you did. We've seen him come back from multiple injuries. And when he plays banged up, he gets the lion's share of carries and he gets that workload. And somehow it's weird. We joked about it off air. Like he gets these injuries and you're like, well, he's done. And then he plays the next game and goes off. Like, I don't get it. But if he's confident in going out there, Mike Zimmer's potentially, coaching for his job. They're going to ride him into the ground as far as he can go. I'm firing up Dalvin tonight if I have him. And you most likely have to, given how your team is, unless your team is loaded. How I approach that in general, you guys touched on some of them. One, again, I think it depends on how your roster is constructed. If you don't need to take an unnecessary risk, then don't take that risk. Two, that research piece. What has that player done when they played banged up in the past? What kind of workload do they get? What kind of team do they play on? For example, like Alvin Kamara, who's been out the last several weeks, when he's played banged up, he doesn't really get the workload that he normally gets. So he's someone who I've had him for every year that he's been in the NFL. And I've had weeks where it's like, Kamara got in limited work all week. He's playing on Sunday. I won't start Alvin Kamara because I know what his limited practice work looks like in terms of what it yields come game time. So knowing the history,
having a backfield partner, Minnesota's normally a situation where there being an Alexander Madison type would kind of scare me off. And that's, I have Darrell Henderson all over the place. He'll come up tonight in our naughty and nice list. I don't have Sony Michel anywhere, and how good Sony Michel looked last week scares me in that. Did he look good enough that, hey, if Darrell needs one more week, why don't we sit him? Where if he plays, he was technically active last week. I don't know if he even touched the field.
No, he saw nothing.
Yeah. So I luckily wasn't in a position where I needed to play him in any leagues last week. And I knew like, hey, this kind of sounds like a last minute flyer. But if he's activating again this week, I might be nervous of, hey, are they actually going to use him? How's that going to go? And some of those other backfields where you have alternatives like that, people have done that touch and go with Zeke and Pollard an awful lot. The different pieces like that of, hey, are they really going to use them like normal? I'm always very hesitant. They're, always the back and forth New England backfields, even like a Shanahan situation here. If Elijah Mitchell doesn't clear concussion protocol pretty quickly here, are they going to lean into, I don't know, Jermichael Hasty or whoever else Jeff Wilson or whoever else they might try to give a shot.
Whoever else they pull off the street to have him run for 150 because that's always happening in that backfield.
Because that's what happens in the San Francisco backfield.
It is wild. You nailed it. Do your history, do your research, know what that team likes to do in these situations, how that player has performed in previous situations like this, and then knowing your roster construction and what risk you can afford to take.
So quick one here before we dive in. Brian Klein asking Rich, do you think Dearness Johnson has any fantasy upside next year in Cleveland or elsewhere? And I can't lie, I don't know his contract status off the top of my head.
Yeah, so he is a restricted free agent next year in 2022. I mean, he's never really gotten paid before. I think he was under $1 million this year from a contract perspective with the Browns. So it's hard to say. I mean, I think Hunt is under contract next year in Cleveland. They still have Chubb, obviously. Hunt will be unrestricted in 2023, but next year, they're going to keep that duo together for sure. So it's hard to say. I do know. I will say the Browns really like Dearness Johnson. They love having him as that kind of that safety net, and with that offensive line, he fits well just with his ability to kind of see the blocking schemes that they're going to do up front. And he's done very well, obviously, in some limited time. So I think the Browns will try to retain him, obviously, with, there's going to be, I think, a lot of changes in Cleveland next year, especially losing probably some of the wide receivers and freeing up some money there. You're not going to have to pay him a ton. So I think they're going to try to retain him, but you never know. So, I wouldn't doubt that somebody, kicks the tires. I mean, he's 25. He's got good size, and he's obviously proven that he can do some things. But, again, Cleveland's offensive lines are good too. So I don't think he's going to get some sort of huge contract anywhere else. So it's going to, we're going to have to kind of play that out and see. If he stays in Cleveland, obviously his value is going to be very limited, unless there's injuries again. But yeah, I mean, if he gets an opportunity somewhere else,
and that RFA tender is tough. It is not designed for running backs. The RFA tender is great when it's a wide receiver, it's a left tackle, it's a defensive end, it's a cornerback. Obviously he's not going to be, first round tender next year is 5.4 million. A second round tender is 3.9, and even the original round tender, which is at least right of first refusal, which I think that's all it would be for Johnson because he wasn't a draft pick, right?
No,
I think he's a UDFA.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't get anything in return, but you'd have the option to match any offer is still 2.4 million, which is obviously more than you'd like to pay a third running back. So that's going to be an interesting spot for them to check out. One, do they find a more reasonable 3-year deal that they give him, kind of lining him up to step in after Hunt as the committee guy there? Or does another team say, hey, that looked really interesting, we'll go 2 years and $6 million, we'll give it to you up front, and they just don't match that, to add a third paid running back. He certainly flashed in the opportunity you got.
Yeah.
Come to Buffalo.
All right. Yeah, literally.
I
don't know how many people I've had to explain that Tony Pollard is not a free agent for the Cowboys. Like everyone, after watching him break that 58, sign above him. Like he's not. He's under contract. Like he's not a free agent. I don't know how to.
That's typical Bill stuff, though. Anytime there's a position of need, like someone flashes, they're like, the Bills should get him. We saw what Mahomes did. The Bills should get him. It's like that's not how it works.
Yeah, that's not how that works. That's not how that goes. So let's start out here. I'd be saying, anybody jumping in, listen, and shoot us any questions that you have, but let's jump in a little bit to take our victory laps or take our medicine. We'll see where it starts. But I'll start by taking the first L. Let's start with quarterbacks right off the bat. QB1 is Tom Brady. I think I have 0 shares of Tom. I don't think I own Tom Brady in a single league. I don't know that I was outwardly telling people not to take him. Same. But when we were talking about, I have an awful lot of Stafford, an awful lot of Joe Burrow, those guys in that same area, that's where Brady was going. And I was never on the Brady train at that point. And certainly was a pretty solid value for where he was. So, happy about, as a group, we were very high on Stafford. Most leagues, he's top 4, top 5. That's been a very nice return. I think in general, the top end quarterbacks have been a more reasonable investment than normally. A lot of times the top quarterbacks end up dropping really, really low. Mahomes was still top 5, Josh Allen top 3, a lot of those guys there. But out of the ones that jumped up, I wasn't on very many of them, and Brady was one of my bigger L's that I had this year. Anthony, were you big on any quarterbacks?
Nope, not at all. I wasn't gonna say, and I didn't want to I was calm with it earlier in the year and throughout, even when you guys were really saying, we were wrong and good job. I was like, no, whatever. I went back and rewatched that episode, like I told you guys off air. And I am fully fired.
So now you understand why we think your comparison to Undertaker was ridiculous.
No, that's not it at all. You guys tried to make it into something so much more than it was, and you dragged it for every inch and mile possible. Weeks. The quotes that I'm ready to say here that I've written down for this episode here. You guys just.
Please I did bring attention to Exhibit B.
I have many exhibits here. I want to pull up real quick someone in the chat just in case, because it is a Thursday night game. The question is, guys, is Dalvin playing? Correct. Dalvin Cook is playing.
He is for sure active. He is active and starting are the two things that we've heard. The expectation from, I think, Adam Schefter was that he gets his normal workload, was the comment that was, he's wearing a harness. The plan is for him to get the normal workload. Earlier in the day, there was an assumption that he'd be the Madison to the Cook in the relationship, and he'd be the 1B. Later in the afternoon, after pregame warm-up, the expectation is that he starts and gets his normal workload. So if you have him, I don't see how you can sit him.
Very fair. Back to this T that
I'm real quick, before we let Anthony rant on Jalen Hurts. Actually, maybe we'll just keep interrupting him for the rest of the show. That could be pretty funny too. This is another question that has to go with today's game. So somebody sent this to me, DM on the Twitter. KJ Osborne or Russell Gage, half-point PPR Thielen out tonight for the Vikings. Osborne has, I wouldn't say flash, but he's had like 1 or 2 games where he's done something. Russell Gage, actually, the last few games has been very nice. So I'll throw that question out there to you guys. So again, KJ Osborne or
so tonight against Pittsburgh with no Joe Hayden, no Adam Thielen. He was honestly like one of the top waiver claims from a receiver standpoint if you were in trouble, or say you had Thielen and we're trying to replace him. Atlanta's going against Carolina, whose defense has maybe slowed a little bit.
Yeah.
Either over-under is exciting. 44.5 tonight, 42.5 down in Carolina.
Probably like the consistency in Minnesota's offense more, how much they funnel to their top end guys. I don't mind. Russell Gage has gotten more consistent. He has gotten better the last couple of weeks. He had that weird one that really threw everybody off. The first week that Calvin Ridley was out and there was the big expectations, he put up a 0. And I think it kind of freaked everyone out. And they were nope, I'm off. I'm out on him completely. The game since then, it's 5 for 49, 6 for 62, and then 11 for 130. He's been, you're talking 10, 11, and 24 points. I guess I feel like Gage, his floor is a little higher, but I don't mind the upside of Osborne. Probably better.
Atlanta scares me. There's just some weeks where Atlanta's offense looks like they just completely forgot on how to play football in every way, shape, and form. And that's enough to push me towards Osborne. I think it's close. I'll 55-45 in favor of KJ for me. But you mentioned a key thing, the offensive consistency for Minnesota. I like Russell Gage. I've seen him a bunch because I've had some Falcon shares over the last couple of years and this year as well. So I've seen some Falcons action, but there's just been weeks where you say, what the hell is going on with Matt Ryan? What is going on in Atlanta? You don't even, and they're so hard to predict. Mike Davis decided to play last week and scored like 20 points. So I'm staying away from Atlanta's offense. I would go KJ, me personally.
How about you, Rich?
Yeah, I think I lean KJ too. Although I feel I like Gage a little bit more than Anthony, but I mean, I agree with his points. Matt Ryan can be complete dog crap some weeks. So, or they just throw the ball or hand the ball off to Cordell Patterson every play, and it's like nobody else eats on that.
Yeah, he's
team. So
the entire offense.
I kind of like just indoors in general, kind of the night. I just kind of in that stadium. Maybe I don't think it's gonna be a shootout, honestly, but with Hayden out, maybe Cousins gets the ball around a little bit.
Yeah, the Steelers' defense is less than what they were earlier in the year, too, lesser.
So yeah, I guess I lean Cage as well. So I'll send the answer back to Edgar, the kind gentleman, on the tweeter. And
I'll say I didn't plan this one, but the opposite, a guy that I was off on and don't have any shares of, but was bad, is Matt Ryan. That was one that I wasn't outwardly telling people to stay away from him, but that I avoided completely. And seeing somebody, he had that stretch where it was like negative points, 2 points, 3 points over like a 4-game stretch that just crushed people. That one was bad. So okay, we're done with quarterbacks now.
I got just one more point real quick about Jalen Hurts. So
we actually got another question now, Kim.
No, I don't care. I'm just gonna keep going.
Oh yeah, I'll wait. It's fine. I'll wait.
You jerks! I would say I got all night. You jerks tried to make this so much more of a thing than it was. Here's my exact quotes because I went back. Here are my exact quotes. I don't love him. I think he can be successful. I think he can take advantage of the system and accumulate stats. You guys took that and turned it into something that it was not whatsoever. I used the Undertaker gimmick comparison as a way to talk about how a gimmick can elevate a wrestler, the way a situation can elevate a quarterback. And I tried to use one that people knew in case we didn't have a lot of diehard wrestling fans. And I'm trying to not swear, you jerks, my favorite quote is from Greg, where Greg says, quote, "I'm going to bag on him all season." You were talking about me. Jalen Hurts in 4-point touchdown leagues as of this moment is QB4, even without that's without.
I would say, and at the end of week 11, he was QB2.
Yes,
and I think even at the end of week 11, he might have been QB2 in 6-point quarterback leagues.
Yeah, there you go. Dude having a very good year, and what's even crazier. So that episode was also a bold prediction episode. My bold prediction for Jalen Hurts was that he would be a top 7 quarterback, and you jerks for the rest of that episode went hard. Rich screenshotted a reaction later and tweeted it out. You guys were trying to text me stuff during the Cowboys game about Jalen Hurts, even though Justin Herbert looked terrible the week before against the Cowboys defense. You guys went so hard. And Jalen, the Undertaker Hurts, has put in a quality year with his legs and his arm and the system. I do not care about anything in this fantasy season other than the fact that I was right on Jalen Hurts, and you bleepity bleepers were such jerk faces, and I am very pleased at the year that he had. That being said, if we're looking into the future, I don't think the future looks great for him to a degree. We'll see what the offseason holds for him. But honestly, like, I don't want to take a lap or pat myself at all. He was literally everything I said he was going to be. Inconsistent. He was going to make some beautiful dimes.
There were
he was going to make some
terrible
terrible
games
throws.
where it's like, how is that 23 fantasy points? It was so bad. But hey, he did exactly what he said.
I literally almost was like 98% correct on everything for Jalen Hurts. And with that, I am leaving for the night. Goodbye. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, that's I am very, very pleased.
Yeah, the fun part is he will be associated to the Undertaker forever.
Yeah,
like that
will be
forever. Yeah. I will never forget that ever. But no, yeah, I did not benefit 1 ounce from Jalen Hurts anywhere in the 24 fantasy leagues and the 77 drafts that I did ahead of time. I think I have literally in the best balls, I think I have 1 Jalen Hurts.
You know what's funny with that?
Leagues.
The only league I have him in is our dynasty league where I'm cursed. In all my other leagues, people were grabbing him in like the 7th round, 6th round, 8th. And I was like, I'm not going that high. But I think what was also interesting too, a lot of like the national pundits, like Matthew Berry was super high on Hurts. And I think when you have something like that, it raises him up. But yeah, for as much as I thought he would do well, I literally only have 1 team. Not even in best ball leagues or anything do I have any shares of Hurts. I just have him in 1.
And I'd say while we're on quarterbacks, Rich, it looks to me like QB2 and QB6 were ones that you were pretty high on.
Yeah, I mean, we're probably looking at slightly different stats, but yeah, Justin Herbert, I have him as QB3 at kind of what I'm looking at. He certainly did what I thought he was going to do. I thought he could have the opportunity to be a top 5, and he climbed a little bit higher than that. Mm-hmm. He had a few that, he was down a little bit. I remember having some shows earlier on in the season where there was a couple people in the chat that were like, hey, I'm a little bit worried about Justin. We said, hey, stay the course. He's going to be fine. And he certainly, continued to be fine. So yeah, he's definitely on my nice list. We talked about Stafford. All of us like Stafford way ahead of his ADP, and he's proven us correct from that standpoint, even though he's also been struggling a little bit.
Fell off a little recently, bit late.
But, he's the one. Then, the other guy that I don't think was the gentleman you were talking about, but maybe he was, he started out real hot and has fallen, but he's still, for me, and at least what I'm looking at here, QB8, and that's Kirk Cousins. He's playing on Thursday Night Football. So, another guy that I was just high on from somebody that you could get 12th round, 13th round.
Great value.
And he could, be a starting quarterback for you in a 1 QB league, and obviously a heck of a value in a 2 QB league. So, those QBs made my nice list. And I'll throw one more out there, but for a negative reason, I was very against most San Francisco players, to be honest. But Trey Lance, I was really against going into the season, and he just never really got that opportunity. So he makes my nice list for being crappy this year.
Yeah, I'll take an L for that one. That was my pairing. I was very, very big, and on the good end was Stafford. Burrow's been okay. He's been fine for the most part, but it was wait. Take one of Stafford and Burrow, and then take one of Fields or Lance. And the Fields and Lance end of it just has been virtually nothing. And the crazy part is, all the rookie quarterbacks, it's been really hard to get. Like Mac Jones has been very, very good from an NFL standpoint, but not from a fantasy standpoint. Trevor Lawrence has had barely any moments.
He was definitely a mango White Claw. That guy was a mango
yeah,
White Claw. I should put him on my nice list.
Yeah, seriously, we had a good call on that. There was nothing good coming from that. So,
I mean, one L I got to take, and it's Baker. I thought Baker was going to be much better than he was this year. QB 26. He's been, NFL wise, he's been rough, but he's fantasy wise, he only has 11 touchdowns or whatever. So I thought he was going to at least be in the conversation for a top 13, 12 type quarterback, somebody that you could pair with, Cousins and have like a young guy that maybe can really, boom, and have that solid guy in Cousins. And Baker has had a rough season with the Cleveland Football Browns. So
he's also been banged up. Not to give you a pass a little, but he's been super banged up, and that affected him a lot too. And that's hard to anticipate.
Yeah, for sure. But still, whether you're hurt or not, we'll get into it in the running back conversation, I'm sure, here in a minute. Whether you're
hurts or not.
Whether you're Jalen, you know what? It's all bullshit because Gardner Minshew proved it doesn't matter. You can just go in there and play this week, so it's fine.
I needed Hurts last week in that dynasty league, and when he was down, I was like, of course, the week against the Jets, and Gardner Minshew is going to do well against the Jets because the Jets are awful.
So nice, Justin Jefferson out in warmups wearing a Tre'Davious White shirt. Like to see that. That's nice,
that's cool.
Nice shout out for his guy from LSU.
Is Justin Jefferson going to play for the Bills on Sunday to help also mitigate that loss?
Maybe at corner. So let's flip over to running back. Start with a couple here, and that was, obviously, I don't know the injury side of it. I don't know that anyone was outright wrong in taking McCaffrey top overall. I know some people were hesitant because of the injury history and anxious about it, but I don't think you were dumb to do that. The same thing, Kamara has had, spots of being out. You obviously weren't dumb for taking Derrick Henry. He was a league winner for half the season. So some of those, I don't know that I consider any of those in particular as an L. The one victory lap I will take, one of the very, very few people I ever heard say anything positive about James Conner was me. I have James Conner in a whole bunch of
so I have so much.
I had him early on in a handful of leagues, and I ended up with him in a lot of places. I don't know that I can explain why he's doing as well as he is, but he turned into the goal line back for Arizona. That one has been a nice one for it, and I'll take the L. I was too hopeful for Saquon, and obviously whether it was the injury, even when he's played, it hasn't been great. That one was a rough one for me at running back that I was hopeful for. And then pre-show, we joked about it. I was right. I was 100% right that there was value in the Atlanta Falcons backfield. It was not Mike Davis. I was 100% right that there was value in the backfield of the Atlanta Falcons. It happened to be Cordarrelle Patterson, and it was not Mike Davis. And I was super, super wrong. And I have so much Mike Davis, and none of it was worth a penny.
Connor's an interesting one because he had talent in Pittsburgh and he could go, but he was always banged up. And then the scheme fit just didn't seem to work out. And he goes to Arizona and is sharing the workload, so he gets to stay healthier and fresher. And then Edmonds goes down, and the opportunity is there. But yeah, he's just been crushing it. I have him in my main league. He's really helped out because I've had so many injuries in that one. I'm glad to see him do well. My biggest win for running backs, I was high on Myles Gaskin. I thought he could finish as a top 20 running back. He's 18 right now. Granted, though, the injury to Malcolm Brown.
The middle stretch was rough for him.
The middle stretch was rough.
He had a rough middle stretch where a lot of people gave up, and then he's come back.
Yes, and I still don't get he's running back 18, which is nice, but they keep running him so much, and they're not really using him in the passing game, which is weird. It's like they're trying to set him up for failure. I feel like he should still be doing more. They're not using him in those option routes and those angle routes out of the backfield, which is interesting. But I thought that was a win for me. I thought he could be top 20. He's RB 18 right now, which to me is even more impressive because he had such a rough stretch to start the year. My biggest L on running backs, I did not believe in Deandre Swift. I was scared of the Lions. I like Swift as a talent, but I just didn't think he would work in the offense. The offense would fail as a whole. And in half PPR, he's RB 10. Right now on the year. Granted, there's been some injuries to other guys, but he's RB 10. I didn't think he would even be in that range. I literally have no shares. I stayed away from him at all costs, and I was very wrong.
Yeah, what's interesting about Swift is that offense, when offenses are so bad, sometimes they're gonna like Patterson. Honestly, they're gonna, especially when Goff can't throw the ball downfield, they're gonna check it down to Swift a million times. Yeah. And again, in a team that has an input, I wasn't high on Swift either, so I mean, I didn't pound the pavement for
another
him,
quick one real quick here before kickoff. Rich,
Osborne
do you think, KJ Osborne for Minnesota tonight, or wait on Sunday for LA, or is that actually Monday?
Monday
night.
Yeah, Monday for LA with Van Jefferson.
I say Van Jefferson.
Yeah, I'm a Van Jefferson fan as well, even with Odell coming and, doing some things here and there, on occasion in an offense. I think Van's kind of establishing himself a little bit as a trusted target of Stafford.
More the Bobby Woods than the Deshaun Jackson. And OBJ will be the Deshaun Jackson, but that also means 2 weeks in a row of 3 for 26 and then 1 week of 112 because he caught the long touchdown bomb.
Yeah, I mean, that one's at Arizona, and Arizona's defense obviously decent, but, and the Rams have struggled a little bit in recent weeks. But Monday night, I think that should be a fun game. Kyler, Stafford, maybe a little bit of a shootout out there in the desert. And again, when it's a close call like this, I actually don't think it's that close. I think Van's going to have a better game, but, kind of a close call where there's not maybe a completely clear-cut person. I still, for whatever reason, from a psyche standpoint, love the Monday night guy too, just so I know what I'm down and I'm rooting for that particular point total. That's cool. So yeah, I think I would go with Van in Arizona.
From a floor standpoint, last 4 games, 7 targets, 9 targets, 8 targets, super consistent. 2 touchdowns in back-to-back games, 93 yards and a touchdown, 41 yards and a touchdown, steady target rate. Yeah, I don't think that's crazy at all. I think I would lean Jefferson as well.
He also had a really cool. There was a cool sideline video of that interaction between him and McVay, where after he scored, McVay was walking by and Van Jefferson walked up and was like, "Hey, thank you so much for believing in me. It gives me confidence." McVay was like, "Of course, you work so hard, you're doing great." That, I like that from a personal standpoint. Not that you should play with your heart, but yeah, I'm all aboard the Van Jefferson train. Choo choo.
Yeah.
Couple more ones at running back. I was not Leonard Fournette. We in our league together. We again, you talk about we pegged the backfield right. That if they figure it out, you could have a guy that leads in touchdowns, awesome offense, and that they're annoyingly more balanced than they probably should be. They could be way pass heavier than what they are. It's just we picked Ronald Jones and it was Leonard Fournette, and I did not have Leonard Fournette barely anywhere.
Seriously, what killed us on that was literally, I think it was the opening drive of the season, and Ronald Jones fumbled the ball.
Yeah, that was it. Never again.
Literally, it was it.
Boom. The rest of the way, Leonard Fournette every single touch.
And it was oh my God, never again. But for me, running backs, I'll just add a couple. I was pretty big on Joe Mixon going into the season. I was, I said he was going to be a top back with, one of the episodes with, Stephanie was on with us, I think.
I think so. I think those were there.
So, and Joe Mixon's number 3 overall right now from a running back standpoint, and looks very nice. So I hit on that one. I was correct on Saquon. I've never been a big fan of Saquon, and whether it's injuries or whatever, I'm never drafting Saquon Barkley. I'm just not doing it. I didn't like CEH going into the season either. And CEH, he's now, he had a decent game recently, but
he's back. But a lot of the teams that drafted him, it's too late because
they're not
already in trouble.
Correct. So those were kind of the nice lists for me as far as being correct on players. Again, I think a lot of us, you touched on it, Greg. There's a lot of injuries actually in the running back area where you were, would be really high on a player and they've kind of fallen back because so it's kind of hard you really take an L on that, other than you already touched on CMC, but now CMC and Barkley, those guys, you gotta, if you're gonna go invest a top pick, you're really rolling the dice now that they're not going to stay healthy.
Seasons. Yeah,
so
2 straight seasons of that.
And even without the injury, I can remember that episode when we were talking, and we all said, hey, definitely, how can you not take him? Mm-hmm. But I was even a little bit concerned going into the season that he just wasn't going to get the same volume because they were maybe afraid of him getting hurt, not doing as much, checking him down. If you kind of go back and listen to that episode, so I was not as not as gung ho that he for sure was going to be 80 points ahead of RB2 or whatever he had been previously. So those guys just scare me. Like I'd rather take somebody that I think is going to be on the field. But yeah. So there's a lot. I mean, Henry, Chubb, Cook, Dalvin Cook. I mean, all those guys, and Aaron Jones are all a little bit lower than I think people would have thought because they've been banged up a little bit.
Another one follow up here from John real quick. Would Javonte Williams be a better flex over KJ Osborne? He lost Waddle and Pittman on bye. Yes.
Yeah.
I just double checked to make sure. I think right now Melvin Gordon is leaning out.
Okay.
I thought he was in.
Back and forth. That was from this afternoon. Maybe not. I
think he's definitely practicing. But I think now, like the way Javonte played last week, I don't see how that's at least not a split backfield.
Yeah.
This week. So
or that he becomes the 60-40 of the 60 of the 60-40.
Even if he was the 40 still, I think I would take Javonte Williams' 40 over KJ Osborne. But again, it's going to be more than that.
I still think that's a comfortable one that I would lean towards.
And actually, some other things on that. I always get worried about games in Denver. Kind of, it's December, but it's supposed to be 55 and maybe partly cloudy, no wind right now. So not that obviously he's not a receiver, so that's not going to necessarily impact him. But I still, you're going to be able to run your offense a lot better if you're not dealing with snow or whatever. And again, Detroit at home is a really nice matchup, so they could easily hand the ball off to both those backs a ton. So I think that's kind of an easy call to take.
Great game script.
Build a dome.
No, I like the wind. I like the wind, man.
Yeah.
Another one that I wish I had felt. I wasn't against Jonathan Taylor. I certainly was comfortable with him. I obviously wish I had been a little bit stronger. Out of that next tier where you would like Mixon, I liked Eckler a fair amount. I ended up with Eckler in a lot of places. I wasn't in the draft spot to get him all that often. So I wish I had been in a better spot. And the same thing with Taylor. Like I like Taylor, but I also liked a lot of those early second round wide receivers and some of the things there. So I ended up leaning other directions. I was big on getting a tight end in that area. So that one had hurt. I wish I had more of it. So I wasn't down on Taylor, but I certainly didn't get as much of him as I would have liked to have found a way to get. Anthony, anything else for you at running back?
No, I was going to mention Mike Davis as well. I was a fan of his. Granted, when Greg, you and I were in the same boat, we were a fan of his at the ADP that we saw early on in the offseason. And then as he started to rise, we began to back off a little bit. But I thought he would still do decent. I thought he could be like a low-end RB2 or a high flex play. And he's been largely unplayable for a majority of the year because for whatever reason, Cordero Patterson stole his mojo or just, I don't know what happened, but sucked his soul out and just dominated the offense.
So, Rich, how about you start us off at receiver?
Yeah, so I'll do the naughty list first. I'll take a big fat L. AJ Brown, just killed me in multiple leagues and killed us in our one league. Yeah. Regardless if you got him in the second or third, he was disappointment. And I just in general Tennessee, right? The passing game. Everyone thought Julio Jones was going to matter.
Yeah. Tannehill might have been a sneaky guy. When I was talking about Stafford, Burrow, Tannehill was right there in that range.
And Tannehill, none of us mentioned as an L because I don't know that we really were like, oh my God, Tannehill or anything. But yeah, that whole Tannehill, Julio Jones, AJ Brown, all have been horrible this year from a fantasy perspective. And I'll take a small L on Jamar Chase. I think I have fourth on him a little bit in the preseason, and we got worried about those drops that he had for a second, and then we got worried about just the offense in general because Burrow was seeing kind of ghosts or whatever with the knee. Because we were like really high in Cincinnati, kind of similar to the Rams. Then we kind of backed off, and then I stuck with Mixon, but I kind of cooled on Chase. And I wish I would have obviously stuck with that, although he is also cooled a little bit in the last few weeks, and they've gone more to T. Higgins, but he's still wide receiver 11 overall, so that was a nice play. Guys that I liked that I'm gonna pat myself on the back for Justin Jefferson. I was really big on going into the season. He's wide receiver 2 in most formats. Michael Pittman, I was pretty big on going into the season. He's wide receiver 14, so not top 10, but again, where you're drafting Michael Pittman, he's certainly moved up from an ADP standpoint. And just one other, not so much from an overall points perspective, although he isn't necessarily amazing, but I was pretty spot on Tyler Lockett just with his inconsistency throughout the season. We mentioned that in multiple episodes and weeks, even when people were kind of asking the question of, do I trade him? Do I do whatever? He's still in the wide receiver, like 24-ish range. So it's not terrible, but it's just most of those points have come from 3 weeks. So that's really not a wide receiver 24 in my book when you're getting screwed.
And if they listened
the
to
rest of those
you
weeks.
and traded him early when 2 out of those 3 weeks were in the first 3 weeks, you probably got way more value than what you ended up with.
Yep. So that's my wide receiver plays.
I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. I wasn't outwardly against Jefferson, but I didn't think he was going to maintain that level. So I didn't end up with him anywhere just because there was always some other direction that we were going. Luckily, most of that was on 2 ends of it named Cooper. I had a fair amount of Cooper Kupp. I also had a fair amount of Amari Cooper in that same area. So instead of Jefferson, I either was really, really happy or really sad. So I had a lot of Amari Cooper. And the Dallas offense in general, I think, was something that I invested a lot in that I think CeeDee Lamb's been okay. When he's been healthy, he's produced. So that's at least turned out all right. Cooper's been a big disappointment. Obviously, Michael Gallup, we haven't really gotten much out of. We had a moment with Dalton Schultz, but there's been a second for Blake Jarwin, and neither of them consistently. You probably got value out of Pollard. Zeke's been okay because there's been so much volume, and they've ran the ball a fair amount, but not anything like a top 5 pick value. Yeah. So it's been that whole same thing. Dak is still quarterback 9, I think, or quarterback 10, or depending on the ranking in the system. So it's been okay, but not the upside that you thought you might be getting, where I talked about him as a dark horse QB1 candidate, and that's an offense you could stack and go for. So I missed on a fair amount of that one. And Dibo Samuel was a big one for me. I love Dibo. I ended up with him all over the place and felt pretty good about that one. And I never envisioned Jalen Waddle ending up this way. I didn't end up with Jalen Waddle anywhere. He has been, especially PPR, has been a really, really consistent target. And then I'll let you guys give a verdict. Do I get a win or a loss on Mike Williams? I don't know what that counts. Does it I
don't know.
I mean, there was a stretch for like 7 weeks.
He was like wide receiver 1 overall at like 6 weeks into the year. And then he's been really frustrated for a whole bunch of the other ones. So I don't know what that.
And now I believe he's out this week too, which doesn't.
COVID.
Yeah, he close contact COVID because of Keenan Allen.
He touched Keenan Allen.
That's wonderful.
Well, I hope they had a good time.
Yeah, but that whole stretch has been a lot of ups and downs from those, and certainly been a little frustrating.
One comment on Waddle, and not that we talked about him a ton preseason, but I'll take kind of a midseason win on Waddle, because I don't know if you guys remember some of the trade episodes right around like week 6-ish. I was really high on trying to trade for Gesicki and Waddle. I just really liked what was happening there. The rate he was coming back from injury, or what was a concussion, whatever he had. He missed a few weeks, and I was like, hey, jump on the board and try to go acquire Jalen Waddle. You might be able to get him cheap. He's not a big name, and he's had awesome weeks down the stretch. And I have a couple shares of him in certain leagues that I'm really happy about, that I've been able to use for whether it's been bye weeks or some guys that have been banged up or whatever. And he's come through with some really nice games for me.
Yeah, especially late, the end of the season. He had early on 4 catches, 3 catches, 2 catches, but the end 10, 7, 8, 4, 8, 9, 9. So 7.
It's when Tua plays, honestly.
Yeah,
if Tua's playing,
that RPO offense, he's eating. Yep, 1,000%.
Anthony, for you,
AJ Brown, loss for me. Calvin Ridley, loss for me. Granted, there's some weirdness with like injuries, but at the end of the day, they did not have good seasons for where I took them or believed where they would finish. So those are big L's for me. I have a decent amount of shares of Cooper Kupp and Dibo Samuel, so I like those. But as far as ones talked on the show, this was also a group one that, or maybe we didn't speak about it on the show. Maybe it was when we did our draft together. Darno Mooney was someone that we had mentioned that we liked. He's in half PPR. He's wide receiver 25 on the year, so kudos to him for that. A big win for me. I banged the drum a little bit for Christian Kirk. Through week 11, he was wide receiver 22, and that's with Kyler Murray missing a bunch of games. Colt McCoy,
and he was
starting.
basically free to get. He was going 1,000%. So late that wide receiver 22 is a nice return on that.
Super late. Yeah, he was wide receiver 22 through 11 weeks. Even now with like the bye week 2 weeks ago and the weird weather week last week with Chicago, he's still wide receiver 32 on the year. So that was a nice one for me down the docket. And those were really my main. Everyone else we kind of
similar to our Mike Williams discussion. I think we get some credit for the initial value that we recommended for Brandon Cooks. We talked him up pretty well, and that was a really nice pick for a while. And then their offense just eventually fell apart, or teams decided that, like, oh, if he's your entire offense, I guess we'll just cover him.
Well, I also don't think that we anticipated that, Tyrod was going to be miss a bunch of weeks. Like, I think we thought, hey, that's a very nice situation. He's going to just pepper him with targets. And I think that would have been true, in most cases if he didn't get hurt.
And maybe even a decent finish here with Tyrod coming back.
Yeah. But no, and a good call on Mooney, though, Anthony. I mean, we did talk about him a little bit, and that's another guy we talked about during trade episodes of a guy that you can get. I think I actually talked about Justin Fields and him having the bromance over TikTok to a couple people and said, hey, this was a great, this was kind of in the middle of Allen Robinson's kind of weird injury stretch. We weren't sure if he's going to be out for this long. And I was just like, hey, I don't know what's going on there, but they got this bromance going on, and he's going to target Darno Mooney. And even Dalton's done it the last few weeks as well, because, I think he's gained some trust within that offense in general. But one W I think we all should take, though, in general, is just the Rams. We kind of said we're taking L on the Titans for the most part, but the Rams, we were high on
Stafford,
Woods,
Darrell Henderson.
Didn't really matter. We just thought that offense was going to be fun. And, you were going to be able to get value where you were taking those players, regardless of who it was. And we that was obviously right pretty much in all of those situations.
One more, I was a year early. Last year, I had so many shares of Hunter Renfro. And this year, not so much. And I liked him as a route runner. I liked him in college. Yeah, but I was just a year early. Last year, I had him. He was like my favorite pick in so many drafts last year. I was a year early, but what a nice year for him out there in Vegas.
A couple that, not that they were investments that hurt anyone, but similar to Brandon Cooks, I thought that was Tyrell Williams in Detroit. That was not Tyrell Williams in Detroit.
He had that weird concussion and then was done.
It turned out there was no one in Detroit.
There was nobody.
There was no one in Detroit. So I was just wrong on the whole scenario. They were so bad that they couldn't sustain any individual receiver. And I wasted a fair amount of late round picks, mid to late, 8th, 9th, 10th round picks on Michael Thomas as a player that could come back. Again, not picks that crush me in any league, but a fair amount of them. Like, I took a dart throw on them when I could have taken a dart throw on Cooks. I could have taken a dart throw on Michael Williams, Michael Pittman. Those were guys going in that same area that I threw out hoping that he would come back, thinking Jameis would have a functional passing offense. I don't even know how functional it would have been if he had even to come back with that. Passing offense has been so weird. But that's another one that just, again, whether we're learning it through him, learning it through Saquon and Christian and McCaffrey, in a lot of different areas, we always find a way in draft season to talk ourselves into health not being as big of a deal. And it just over and over again, it bangs us over the head that just listen to it. Just don't take the guys with the spotty injury history. It's going to work out in your favor. A couple more here, and we can throw out anything else besides tight end if there was somebody you liked a lot in kickers or defense. But tight end, Rich, where were you? Where were you right? Where you were wrong? Who was not? I mean,
I feel that in general, if we go back and listen to some of those early episodes, I'm never really on the take the tight end high train. I never, and even in FFPC when it's the bonus, I still like cringe a little bit and go, so I was, pretty high on, guys that like Mike Gesicki, who ended up being real nice. He's tight end 4 right now. And even guys that, technically are still good, the TJ Hawkinsons, the Mark Andrews, but they were still the lower tier. Those guys, tight end 2, tight end 3, I stay away from the Kelsey, I stay away from Waller, I stay away from Kittle, and that usually works out in my advantage. I like Dalton Schultz going into the year. I had him quite a bit, and honestly, he's tight end 5. I mean, Greg, you just kind of mentioned, he's been a little bit spotty, but he's still tight end 5.
Tight end has been such a disaster this year that having anyone who had any good weeks is a win, because there's just been so much down that the overall scoring is ugly. Like, Mark Andrews is tight end 2. Like, it's been a lot of boomer bust weeks, but he's actually tight end 2 by a fair, healthy margin of where he is. And it hasn't actually been that great of a year.
Yeah. No, I mean, and Michael's right. I mean, Gronk, when he's healthy, he's produced a ton. It just, can't stay
Which
on the
is
field.
honestly been a blessing because you don't end up playing him in the crap weeks because they sit him.
Oh, that's fair.
When he's hit per game, he's probably way closer to the top.
Yeah. In my L, just in tight ends, I thought the New England tight ends were going to do something, and they did nothing. So whether it was Hunter Henry or Jonas Smith, and I think I had more Joni than Hunter, which was even worse because Jonas Smith was worse than Hunter Henry. Not that I had a ton of those shares, but those were guys I kind of was like, oh, if I didn't get, in my opinion, those like tier 2 or tier 3 tight ends, I was like trying to grab one of those guys. Later on, Noah Fant, which when he's played, he's been okay.
I just did the rough math in fantasy points per game. Grunk's number 1.
Yeah, I mean he's had a great season when he's been on. When he's been on
6 games. He's only played 6 games, so you've only got the benefit in those little bits. Tight end was a disaster for me this year because, like I said, I would now. Luckily, I got saved by the fact that I missed. I would have taken Kelsey, Waller, Kittle if I had a chance to. I got lucky that I missed on them in quite a few leagues and settled for Mark Andrews and ended up with a lot of Mark Andrews where I wanted to reach for one of those guys earlier. So I did get some Kittle, some Waller, some Kelsey, but I ended up with more Mark Andrews than them out of dumb luck just because I took a receiver or a running back in those spots because they went just in the wrong spot. So I liked them a lot and wanted to take tight end early, but I was lucky and ended up with Andrews in a fair amount. There were some other ones that I had a lot of Tyler Higbee. I had a lot of Noah Fant. They had some moments. I had a lot of Jared Cook, and it just didn't pan out. I did not have a lot of Dalton Schultz. I didn't get Dawson Knox in time in a lot. So a lot of those that benefited from some of those runs, I didn't snag at the right time. So tight end was a mess for me this year.
I've had a decent amount of success with tight end. I've got a smattering of Dawson Knox and in a couple of leagues, but my big tight end winners, I had for whatever reason, however it worked out in a lot of my leagues, I have a pairing of Tyler Higbee and Dallas Goedert. So when Goddard was getting banged up earlier in the year, I was able to roll with Higbee, and I've been able to go with Goddard now that he's been back, and Higbee's kind of fizzled a bit. Goddard was the big one for me, though. In half PPR, he's tight end 7 on the year, and that's with leaving on the first drive of a game when he got a concussion, missing a couple games with some injuries, and the fact that he's still tight end 7, I think is pretty cool. I like that one. I think my biggest one, hasn't killed it, but he's come on as of late. I really love Pat Freiermuth at Penn State, and I liked the pick for Pittsburgh. And that was one for me that I was like, people aren't taking him. If he's there with your last couple of picks, take a flyer on him. I think he could be something. And he's become a legitimate red zone threat over the last, I would say, back half of the season. He's getting garbage time points as well. He even got the 2-pointer last week against Baltimore. They go to him down there. I really like him for future years as well. He's so athletic. He's so good at the catch point. His athleticism is really translated well to the NFL. And my biggest loss for tight end, Logan Thomas. I had a significant amount of him in a bunch of leagues, which is really unfortunate. He's such an awesome dude as like a person, and I like his style and his game. And then he comes back and he gets hurt again right away, like last week, and you saw the tears in his eyes and look on his face. That sucks. I think that also holistically, we talked about our L with Tennessee, but our win with the Rams. I guess for me, I take a bit of a loss for the Redskins. I'm sorry, Washington football team. I thought Fitzy would do well. He literally never played. McLaurin has been good, but Heineke still isn't that QB to elevate him. Antonio Gibson has caught on recently, but in the early 3 quarters of the year,
most teams who are benefiting from it now, it doesn't matter because they were already saying
exactly you're already done. I still think that's an offense if they get a gunslinger or if Fitzy was healthy, or if they get a true QB1. No disrespect to Taylor Heineke, I think Terry McLaurin's a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL once he gets that.
If
QB
that was a destination for Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers or any of those teams that get talked to, QB's talking about moving, that's a little more ready-made. That people talk about Denver all the time. That one's not a bad spot to plug in.
Yes,
all of a sudden you give Aaron Rodgers, Curtis Samuel, and Terry McLaurin and Logan Thomas and Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick. That's a pretty good spot.
And I wish not wish, but like if Terry McLaurin wasn't a Washington captain and so beloved and valued by that organization, if I was a team, I would trade the world for Terry McLaurin and try and pluck him away from Washington. He's so talented. But yeah, I'll take a bit of a loss on that one, just because I thought they would be a much more elevated offense than they were, and for a multitude of reasons, they really haven't been. Greg, you're on mute.
One last area.
I have a quick comment just on Taylor. Not that we ever talked about, Taylor Heineke, but you know what? The kid actually has played decent.
Yeah, he has
2,800 yards, 18 touchdowns, 11 picks, and adds 300 with his legs. And he's a competitor. I like to watch him play because he's a competitor. And you can tell he genuinely cares and he gets really excited, especially last week when that kid was Brian Johnson or whatever, got signed and hit the game winner. He's going nuts, right?
Yeah.
So, interestingly enough, he's only a couple points behind Joe Burrow this year from a fantasy standpoint. He's
wild.
QB 15 with 196, and Joe Burrow's 206, QB 13. So
ahead of Matt Ryan, ahead of Daniel Jones, ahead of Russell Wilson, ahead of Trevor Lawrence, guys that were some sneaky. Yeah, Justin Fields, obviously, all the rookies. Sneaky.
So just, I don't know, just interesting. I'm curious to see what happens to him in his career, because I feel like he's had a decent enough season to warrant, starting somewhere in the NFL.
It's possible. Well, it's possible Washington
they hang on to him
one more shot.
Right.
I want him to succeed. Even in the playoff game last year against Tampa, he looked like good, and not even good enough. Like, he looked good. Like, I really genuinely want him to succeed. Everything, Rich, that you said was so spot on. He's such a competitor. Like, he's literally that cliche, like, first guy in, last guy out, grinds it out, the type of guy you like, all that kind of stuff. And like, you see it on the field. I just love the way he grinds.
So another one, I want to shout out our, we talked about don't invest in defenses, just wait and play the matchups and scroll. And this year, unless you ended up picking up the Patriots when they started to play the Jets, there was a stretch there. But early on, they got dropped a ton because their opening weeks were 5 points, 3, 1, 5, 4. So until you got through the first 6 weeks, they were like defense 27. Then they got hot. Beyond that, there has not been a single start every week defense really around all of fantasy. The Bills had a stretch there for a while. They were pretty steady, but even them there's 2s and 0s and 2s mixed in there.
Yeah.
Waiting, playing the matchups, trying to look a week or two ahead, looking at, Rich, you were always very good about pointing out, hey, look at the Vegas over-under, look at the weather, look at those different pieces, and just play that matchups. Even sometimes when it was kind of a hold your nose, you didn't like the defense you were playing, but the matchup was good.
Yeah.
There was a lot of those where, hey, it was functional and playable and you could get by. And that was one that I thought we were pretty strong about advocating, and certainly will be in future years, of don't try to peg who the good defenses are, because just as an FYI, the Rams finished as defense 20. And that, they were by far the number one drafted.
What about
defense.
The Steelers?
Steelers are 15.
Too.
They're 15. They're not good either. I mean, they're moderate.
Yeah, the Ravens were even lower than those guys. And
their whole team decided to just get the plague in a variety of forms they could not stay healthy.
Yeah, it was pretty tough to peg any of the, all of us were off of the Cowboys. Came in and they were supposed to be the Cowboys were supposed to be a defense that you played against, that you were supposed to play your starters against, because, hey, it's going to be a shootout. They're defense number 2.
That was part of the reason of going with Dak and Zeke. Yes. It was like, well, they got to score 40 a game because their defense is going to be awful again. Their defense is
so bad. Yeah, their fantasy defense number 2 overall on the season.
Dan Quinn has really made a real difference there, as has, I guess, QBs deciding that they want Trayvon Diggs to lead the league in interceptions, and everybody just keeps throwing at him, and he just keeps picking it off. Yeah, it's been wild. I have one league where I got lucky. I've had the Patriots and Bills defense since the beginning of the year, and I was able to, the timing just worked out perfectly. Other than that, I've been...
Yeah, the Bills to start the year, and the Patriots to end the year is by far defense number 1.
Other than that, you nailed it, how we talked about it, where it's just been a smattering of okay, this is the defense I'm playing this week. Who's on waivers that looks good next week or the week after? Okay, let me grab this defense, and the constant... It's been a stressful year for defense in fantasy, because I feel like I was constantly having to play mix and match, because exactly to your point, there wasn't any one defense from start to finish. That even Dallas has had a couple of weeks where I have them in our dynasty league when I picked them up off waivers. They've had some weeks where it was like 2 points, 3 points, and then they'd bust back with like 18 or 20. But there hasn't been one defense from wire to wire that has just been like, cool, I can plug start and I'm done.
Any others from a specialty standpoint, or anybody else we haven't touched on yet?
No, I mean, I think from a specialty standpoint, I don't know how interesting it is to really talk about kickers. My Tyler Bass in every league has necessarily been is as exciting as
again,
the 2020.
Similar to the Bills season, really nice at the beginning, kind of rough since then.
Really, honestly, from a kicker standpoint, Nick Folk's the only one that really is ahead of the pack. You got Daniel Carlson down to really Tyler Bass, Graham Gano, like 2 through 10 are all within 6, 7, 8 points of each other. So it hasn't really mattered. But we certainly never advocated for taking any sort of kickers at any point in time. I just thought it was funny that I ended up getting Tyler Bass in 9 straight leagues, so I have a good time with that. But
I'll say for anything, at least versus where we made fun of the top 3 drafted defenses were the Rams, the Steelers, and the Ravens. They ended up like 15, 18, and 20. At least Justin Tucker is kicker 3. Like, at least if you did go Justin Tucker with the top drafted kicker, it at least didn't crush you. It's still usually not that smart to take a kicker early, but at least it worked out. Although I think Harrison Butker was usually next, and he was down closer to 12 and had some rough weeks there. So
a weird special teams year for fantasy.
Yeah, certainly.
Fantasy's stupid. I hate it.
I don't even know why anybody does this.
Well, stop comparing people to The Undertaker, man. You'll have a much better time.
That's not even how it was. Don't care. I was right. Still hate it. I hate you guys.
We should have had a better wager on the line. I'd like buy you a Jalen Hurts jersey. Or
I don't even like it like that. I don't even think I
should have got a Jalen Hurts jersey, but put like Undertaker, get his number, but put
That'd
Undertaker across the nameplate.
I would take that. The perfect one, like, I don't think I ever told you guys this either. There was the Dallas game, right? Which he actually ended up finishing really well in the fourth quarter. But I was doing stuff for disguise coverage, and I was like watching the game on my tablet, but I was doing Bills film cut-ups and a whole bunch of stuff, and my phone was in the living room. So I go back to my phone, and I'm also watching the game. I like paused it on my tab. I had it on delay. So I go back to my phone, and our group chat between the 3 of us just has like 25 messages. And I'm like, oh my God, like what happened? And so like I literally look at it, and they're all just like, oh, Hurts sucks. Oh, look at Hurts. And I was like, screw this. And I just like threw my phone on the couch and then went back to go do work. It was just you guys ripping him for like so long.
The Vikings have ran 8 plays so far. Dalvin Cook has 3 carries for 54 yards.
So not good.
So definitely worth starting. Although they just
I think they just gave Madison a
carry in, but you take 54 yards right out the gate.
Yeah.
Anthony got very blurry. Are you drunk over there?
I don't know what happened to my camera. I have the same camera that Greg has, and so every once in a while it does like weird focus things.
Yeah, autofocus.
There you go. I got it.
So, but overall, just wanted to say how much I enjoyed this season together, and that looking forward to next year and giving this a run again and figuring out how we want to make it even better. But if you enjoyed this, let us know, give us ideas, shoot us messages. We'll be there on Twitter to answer questions through the fantasy playoffs and about the Cavs or about wrestling or whatever else you guys are interested about. Obviously, you can see Anthony and I as we finish out this hopefully better ending Bills season than this rough middle stretch here. We'll be there for you with the disguise coverage and the Cover One Buffalo show. But Anthony and Rich, I certainly had a very nice season. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I had a great time. It's always fun to talk, football, talk fantasy, getting back to some of the old days when I used to do the podcast that we talked about, in the beginning episodes of the show. So it's been great. And, I think we had a pretty successful, season as far as giving out advice, whether it's betting advice or, or fantasy advice. I think we did a pretty good job. I mean, last week, just from a betting standpoint, we both were really high on that over-under in the Chargers-Bengals game, and that was a home run. We were both really on, and that was another home run. So, we've been able to make some money there. And next year, for those of you that don't live in Ohio, like me and Greg, we get to bet on sports next year, which is going to be awesome.
I think New York will have mobile betting by that point as well. So a lot of fun opportunities coming there. Maybe this will just become the Cover One gambling show instead of fantasy. Fantasy will be the side piece.
Right. Yeah. We just do whatever.
Gambling, fantasy, wrestling.
Risk your money.
Yeah.
all in one show, the triple threat. Yeah, this was I had a blast this year. I thought it was a successful first season for the fantasy show. The first thing that like Cover One is really done with this. And Greg, you and I had talked about it in like March of the idea of doing a fantasy thing. And you were like, the only ones who really care about it are me and you. So what do you think? And I was like, yeah, I'm down. And then I followed up with it. And you were like, oh, like I actually have a buddy of mine, Rich, you'd really dig him. And I was like, I bet. And then I met Rich and I hated him. And it's been terrible ever since. But no, I thought I had a really good time this year. The only thing I'm disappointed in is that the team that we shared was just so snake bit. And we couldn't go a little farther. But other than that, yeah.
Justin Jefferson touchdown.
Oh, there you go. Keeps on
keeping on. Keep doing the W for Justin.
There you go.
Yeah, no, I agree. This has been a lot of fun. To go. Greg Joseph missed the extra point. So that's anybody who had Greg Joseph.
That dynasty team is so cursed. I have him in that league. Like everything that team has touched is
anything you
cursed.
touch just turns to crap.
So terrible. What the hell?
But we thank our sponsor, Cover One or Underdog Fantasy. They've been fantastic. Been a great partner, and we thank all you guys. We had a lot of people take us up on the offer to be able to check out and download the Underdog Fantasy app. Use promo code Cover One. Really ended up being a really cool opportunity. And I think if I remember right, throughout the season, I think we had 70 people end up downloading the Underdog Fantasy app and checking it out because of all the different folks on the Cover One network and checking it out. So that was really cool. I thought a lot of people had fun with it. We obviously had a good time with it. Hopefully your best ball leagues have a chance here and are going well, and you've enjoyed some of the other stuff during the year with the Pick'em contest. But I appreciate it. We'll look forward to that for next year. But on behalf of Anthony and Rich, I'm Greg. You've been listening to Cover